The morning sky over Washington, D.C. turned strange as a massive shadow fell across the city. People stopped walking, looked up, and pointed. Cars slowed to a halt. The giant ship that appeared was bigger than anything humans had built. It hung there, silent and dark, its metal skin marked with strange symbols. Commander Alan Miller was eating breakfast when the emergency alert buzzed on his phone. As head of the North American Defense Command's Alien Monitoring Division, he knew this day might come. He just didn't expect it so soon. "Sir, they're back," said the voice on the other end. "The Krell have returned." Miller's coffee mug stopped halfway to his mouth. "How many ships?" "Just one, sir, but it's massive. At least 3 miles across." Miller grabbed his coat and ran for the door. "Alert the president. I'm on my way." 30 years ago, when Miller was just a young lieutenant, the Krell had visited Earth for the first time. They came in small ships, landing in remote areas. They studied humans, shared some basic knowledge, and left with promises of friendship. The world had changed after that first contact. Knowing they weren't alone in the universe had united humanity in new ways. Now the Krell were back, but something was different. At the Pentagon, screens showed the alien ship hanging over the city. General Diane Powell entered the command center, her face serious. "What do they want?" she asked. A communications officer looked up from his station. "They're broadcasting a message worldwide, ma'am. On all frequencies." "Put it on screen." The main screen flickered, showing a tall, gray-skinned alien with 4 arms and eyes that glowed yellow. When it spoke, its voice was deep and cold. "People of Earth, I am Supreme War Master Drax of the Imperial Krell Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You have 72 hours to surrender control of your governments and resources. Those who resist will be destroyed. Those who comply will serve. This is not a negotiation." The message ended. The room fell silent. Then, surprisingly, General Powell laughed. It started as a small chuckle, but grew until she had to hold onto the edge of a desk for support. "General," Miller asked, confused. Powell wiped her eyes. "They have no idea what they're walking into." "Mom, think about it, Miller. The Krell visited us 30 years ago. They think we're the same humans they met back then. They think we're still flying primitive rockets and fighting over oil." Understanding dawned on Miller's face. "They don't know what we learned from them." "Exactly." Powell turned to her staff. "Get me the president. And contact Dr. Kim at the Reverse Engineering Division." Within hours, world leaders gathered in an emergency video conference. News channels showed the alien ship while trying to keep people calm. But strangely, there wasn't much panic. Humans had been preparing for this day since the Krell first appeared. Frank Carter, now an old man with white hair, was brought in as a special advisor. He had been one of the first humans to speak with the Krell 3 decades ago. "They always looked down on us," Carter told the Emergency Council. "When they left their trash behind, broken parts from their landing craft, they didn't think we could learn anything from it. But we did." President Samuel Green nodded. "The question is, do we tell them what we know, or let them find out the hard way?" On the screens, more Krell ships appeared in orbit. Their weapons systems powered up, glowing with purple energy. "I think," said General Powell with a small smile, "we should let them take the first shot." Outside, people watched the ships through binoculars and phone cameras. Unlike alien invasion movies, there was no mass panic. No running through streets or looting stores. Instead, people followed the emergency protocols they had practiced for years. They moved calmly to designated shelters built deep underground. A mother led her young son to a shelter entrance. He looked up at the ships. "Mom, are the aliens going to hurt us?" She smiled and squeezed his hand. "No, honey. They just don't know who they're dealing with yet." As night fell over America, the Krell ultimatum played again on all channels. But between broadcasts, a simple message from the world's governments appeared. "Stay calm. We are prepared. This is what we've been waiting for. Supreme War Master Drax stood on the command deck of his massive ship, looking down at the blue planet. His yellow eyes narrowed as he received the report from his communication officer. The humans request more time for diplomatic discussions, War Master, said the officer. Drax slammed one of his 4 arms against the metal railing. They stall because they fear us. Typical of a primitive species. What Drax didn't understand was happening miles below, hidden from the Krell's scanning technology. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Olivia Martinez walked through an enormous underground factory. Hundreds of workers assembled sleek fighter ships and weapons that looked more advanced than even Krell technology. The parts moved along assembly lines that stretched for miles under the mountain. How much longer until the defense grid is fully powered? She asked her assistant. 4 more hours, Doctor. All 50 satellites will be online by then. Martinez nodded. Good. The aliens gave us exactly what we needed. Time. When the Krell left Earth 30 years ago, they had abandoned small pieces of technology, thinking them useless trash. But human scientists like Martinez had studied every scrap, taking apart each alien device and learning its secrets. What had taken the Krell thousands of years to develop, humans had reverse engineered in just 3 decades. In the White House Situation Room, President Green met with his military advisors. The wall screen showed Krell ships positioning themselves around Earth. What's our status? The president asked. General Powell pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's hidden defenses. Our shield network is at 87% capacity. Ground forces are in position. The lunar base reports all 6 counter-attack vessels are ready for launch. Frank Carter, the retired astronaut who had met the Krell during first contact, studied the alien ship formations. They're using the same attack pattern they showed in their military database 30 years ago. The database they thought we couldn't access, Powell added with a smile. Carter nodded. They don't know we translated their entire language, broke into their computer systems, and downloaded their military tactics. They think we're still using radio signals and chemical rockets. Across the world, humans prepared in ways the Krell couldn't imagine. In small towns, average people opened special compartments in their basements, revealing advanced weapons and shields. Farmers drove tractors with hidden military technology. School teachers calmly guided children to shelters equipped with technology that could withstand nuclear blasts. This wasn't panic. This was the plan they had been preparing for 30 years. On the Krell command ship, Drax received another message from Earth requesting a peaceful solution. He laughed at their desperation. Show them our power, he ordered. Target their largest military base as a demonstration. The Krell ships moved into attack position above Norfolk Naval Station, their weapons charged, glowing with purple energy. Drax expected the humans to beg for mercy once they saw the destructive power of just one Krell weapon. But in orbit around Earth, invisible to Krell sensors, 50 satellites quietly activated. Each one contained technology that could absorb and redirect energy. Technology the humans had perfected years ahead of the Krell's own capabilities. In a command center under Denver, Captain Steve Rogers watched the Krell ships on his monitor. They're preparing to fire on Norfolk, he reported. Let them, said General Powell over the communication link. The shield will hold. Let's see their faces when they realize their weapons do nothing. Outside homes across America, people looked up at the alien ships. Some took videos with their phones. Others simply watched with calm interest. No one ran. No one screamed. Instead, they waited with strange confidence. A young boy in Virginia pointed at the biggest alien ship. Dad, are those the bad aliens from your stories? The father, a veteran of the reverse engineering program, nodded. Yes, son. But don't worry. We've been getting ready for them since before you were born. What will happen when they attack? The father put his arm around his son's shoulders. They'll learn an important lesson about humans. We may look small, but we learn fast. In orbit, the Krell weapon systems reached full power. The deadline for Earth's surrender was about to expire. Drax gave the final order to fire, certain this would be the beginning of an easy conquest. He had no idea he was about to give humanity exactly what they had been waiting for. The deadline passed. On the Krell command ship, Supreme War Master Drax stood tall, his gray skin tight against his face as he gave the order. Fire main weapons. Target their capital city first. The massive Krell warship shifted position over Washington, D.C. The weapon ports opened like giant dark eyes, energy building inside them. The air around the ship seemed to bend as power gathered. Energy levels at maximum, reported the weapons officer. Target locked. Drax raised his arm. Fire. A brilliant purple beam shot down from the ship. It looked like a giant lightning bolt cutting through the sky, heading straight for the White House. People on the streets below looked up. Some pointed. Some took pictures with their phones. But strangely, no one ran. In the White House Situation Room, President Green and his team watched the incoming attack on their screens. Nobody moved. Nobody panicked. "Shield status?" asked the president calmly. 100% ready, sir," replied General Powell. As the purple beam reached about 100 miles above the city, it hit something invisible. The energy spread out like water hitting glass, forming a dome of light that covered the entire city. For a moment, the shield became visible, a shimmering blue barrier that extended from horizon to horizon. Then the beam disappeared. The attack was over. Washington, D.C. remained untouched. On the Krell ship, alarms sounded. Officers rushed to their stations, checking readings and trying to understand what happened. "Impossible," shouted the weapons officer. "The energy beam. It just vanished." Drax's yellow eyes widened. Fire again. Full power. The Krell ship fired a second time. Again, the purple beam hit the invisible shield and dissolved into nothing. The city below remained safe. In the streets of Washington, people cheered. Some laughed and high-fived each other. 30 years of preparation had paid off. A news reporter stood in front of the Washington Monument, speaking into her camera as the purple beam lit up the sky behind her. "As you can see, the alien weapon has hit our defense shield and caused no damage. Officials asked citizens to remain calm and follow safety protocols, but there appears to be no immediate danger." Under the Pentagon, in a special command center, Commander Alan Miller watched the alien ships on a 3D display. "They're moving to target other cities," he reported. "Let them try," said General Powell. "Every major population center is protected." The Krell targeted New York next. The same thing happened. Their powerful beam hit the shield and disappeared. Then they tried London, Moscow, Beijing, and Tokyo. Each time, their weapons failed against Earth's invisible protection. In the White House, President Green nodded to his defense secretary. "I think they've had enough chances. Let's show them what we've learned." The order went out to Captain Lisa Wright, who waited in orbit aboard the camouflaged station Archimedes. The station had been there for 5 years, invisible to Krell sensors. "Authorization received," she told her crew. "Prepare to reveal defensive fleet." On the Krell command ship, Drax was in a rage. He smashed equipment with his multiple arms as his officers backed away in fear. "How is this possible?" he shouted. "They are primitives. They had barely reached their own moon when we left." His science officer spoke nervously. "Sir, we're detecting strange energy readings around the planet. It appears they have some kind of global defense system." "Impossible. Such technology would take centuries to develop." Just then, a junior officer called out, "War Master, new contacts appearing around our ship." On the main view screen, 6 sleek vessels appear out of nowhere. They were clearly human-built but featured technology that looked more advanced than anything the Krell possessed. They moved with incredible speed, surrounding the Krell warship. A message came through on all Krell frequencies. The face on the screen was human. Captain Lisa Wright sitting calmly in her command chair. "This is Earth Defense Force. Your attacks have failed. We've been studying your technology for 30 years. We suggest you reconsider your position." Drax stared at the screen in disbelief. The primitive humans not only had shields that could block Krell weapons, but they had ships that could match or even exceed Krell capabilities. Impossible, he whispered. But the evidence was right in front of him. The humans hadn't just caught up to Krell technology. They had surpassed it. Captain Lisa Wright sat in the command chair of her ship, the Defender, looking at the massive Krell warship on her view screen. Though her vessel was much smaller, she felt no fear. The other 5 ships of Earth's advanced fleet moved into perfect formation around her. "All ships report ready, Captain," said her first officer, Jack Nelson. Wright nodded. "Open a channel to all Krell vessels." When the communication line opened, she spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Captain Lisa Wright of the Earth Defense Force. Your attacks have been ineffective. We've been studying your technology for decades. Please stand down." On the main Krell warship, Supreme War Master Drax watched the human woman on his screen with disbelief. How could these primitive creatures have ships in space? And why did some of their technology look familiar? "Scan those vessels," he ordered. "I want to know what we're facing." The scan results made his officers gasp. The human ships were using advanced power systems, shield technology, and weapons that were clearly based on Krell designs. But these weren't simple copies. The human versions were more efficient, more powerful, and in some cases, completely redesigned in ways the Krell had never considered. Impossible. Drax slammed his fist on the console. "They've taken our technology and improved it." The science officer looked up from his readings. "Sir, based on these scans, their ships are at least 2 generations ahead of our current designs." Drax couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans had leapfrogged centuries of development. But how? Back on Earth, in the White House Situation Room, President Green watched the confrontation on the large screen. Frank Carter, the old astronaut, stood beside him, a smile on his face. "Do you remember," Carter said, "when the Krell ambassador dropped that broken data pad during the first contact meeting? He told us it was trash, not worth picking up." The president nodded. "And you saved it anyway." That one device contained their entire engineering database. They didn't even encrypt it because they thought we were too primitive to access the technology. Carter laughed softly. That was their first mistake. In space, Drax made his decision. He would not be humiliated by these humans. Launch fighters, all squadrons. Show these creatures what real space combat looks like. Hundreds of Krell fighter ships poured out from the larger vessels, their engines glowing green as they formed attack patterns and headed toward the 6 human ships. Captain Wright watched calmly. "They're using the Thraxian wing formation," she noted, "just like in their combat manual." Her tactical officer nodded. "Exactly as we practiced in the simulators. All ships engage defensive pattern Echo. Use minimal force. We want to demonstrate, not destroy." The human ships moved with incredible precision. Where the Krell fighters were fast, the human ships were faster. Where the alien weapons were powerful, the human shields were stronger. The 6 Earth vessels danced between the swarm of Krell fighters, avoiding shots with ease and disabling enemy ships with precise, low-power hits. On his command ship, Drax watched in horror as his fighters were picked off one by one. The humans seemed to know exactly what moves his pilots would make before they made them. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His tactical officer looked up from his console. "Sir, they're countering every standard attack pattern in our combat database. It's as if they've studied our tactics for years." "Because we have," came Captain Wright's voice over the communication system. "Every textbook, every training manual, every battle plan. We found it all in the computers you left behind." In the Lunar Command Center, General Powell watched the battle with satisfaction. The years of preparation were paying off. Earth ships moved with perfect coordination, neutralizing the Krell fighters without destroying them. "They're pulling back," reported the watch officer. "The Krell fighters are retreating to their motherships." Powell nodded. "Good. Now they understand what they're dealing with." On his ship, War Master Drax faced a decision he never thought possible. The easy conquest he had promised his leaders was turning into a potential disaster. These humans were not the primitive beings the Krell remembered. They had somehow transformed themselves into a formidable space power. "Should we prepare the ground invasion forces, Warmaster?" asked his second-in-command. Drax stared at the viewscreen, watching his fighters limping back to their hangars. "Yes," he said finally. "Perhaps in direct combat, we can still prevail." He didn't sound convinced. After their defeat in space, the Krell needed a victory. Supreme Warmaster Drax chose a small town in Kansas for their first ground attack. The flat farmland looked easy to control, and the small population seemed like a simple target. "Our dropships will land here," Drax told his commanders, pointing to a map of the area. "We will show these humans what real warriors can do in face-to-face combat." 20 Krell dropships descended through the atmosphere, their engines roaring as they approached the small town of Riverdale, Kansas. Inside, elite Krell soldiers prepared their weapons and armor. They were the best fighters in the Krell military, with 4 arms that could each hold a different weapon. The ships landed in a large wheat field outside town. The doors opened, and hundreds of Krell soldiers poured out, ready for battle. But instead of panic, they found silence. The town seemed empty. No humans ran away. No emergency vehicles rushed around. Just quiet streets and closed doors. Commander Vex, leader of the ground forces, activated his scanner. "Detecting human life signs in those buildings," he reported. "They're hiding from us." Just then, a single vehicle approached. It was a police car, moving slowly down the main road toward the aliens. It stopped about 50 yards away, and a human female got out. She wore a simple brown uniform with a star-shaped badge. "That's Sheriff Heather Collins," said a voice behind the Krell soldiers. They turned to see an older human male standing there, leaning on a wooden fence post. He wore dirty overalls and a cap, looking like a simple farmer. "Where did you come from?" demanded Commander Vex, raising his weapon. The farmer shrugged. "Been here the whole time. Name's Bill Peterson. This is my land you're standing on." Sheriff Collins walked closer, her hands empty, showing no fear. "You folks must be the Krell we've been hearing about," she said calmly. "You're trespassing on private property." Commander Vex couldn't believe what he was hearing. These humans should be terrified, not talking about trespassing, as if the Krell were common criminals. "We are here to conquer your world." Vex shouted, "Surrender now or be destroyed." Collins sighed and touched a small device on her wrist. "This is Sheriff Collins. We have contact with hostiles at the Peterson farm. Initiating Defense Protocol 3. Suddenly, all around the field, ordinary-looking farmers stood up from behind fences, emerged from barns, and stepped out from behind tractors. Each one held what looked like farm tools, but when they pressed buttons on the handles, the tools transformed into advanced weapons. At the same time, the ground beneath the Krell dropships began to move. The wheat field split open, revealing hidden missile launchers and defense turrets that had been concealed underground. "What is this?" gasped Commander Vex. Sheriff Collins smiled. "We've been expecting you for about 30 years now. Ever since your friends left, we've been getting ready." The farmer, Bill Peterson, pulled something from his pocket. It looked like a simple metal pipe, but when he pressed a button, it expanded into a rifle that glowed with blue energy. "That's Krell technology," shouted one of the alien soldiers. "Was Krell technology," Peterson corrected him. "We made some improvements." From over the horizon came the sound of helicopters. 5 black military aircraft appeared, hovering above the field. They didn't look like ordinary helicopters. They had no rotors, instead floating on silent anti-gravity engines straight out of Krell design manuals. The side doors opened, and human soldiers in powered armor jumped out. Their suits made them faster and stronger than any normal human could be. As they landed, the ground shook under their weight. Colonel John Baker, leader of the National Guard unit, approached Commander Vex. His armor made him almost as tall as the Krell officer. "We have you surrounded. Baker said through his helmet speakers. Your ships are disabled. Your weapons won't work against our shields. To demonstrate, he held out his arm. One of the Krell soldiers fired, and the energy blast bounced off an invisible barrier around Baker's suit. How is this possible? Commander Vex asked, lowering his weapon. You were primitives when we last visited. Baker's helmet opened, showing his face. He was smiling. Every child on Earth grows up playing war games based on your tactics. Our military has trained specifically to fight Krell soldiers. We know every move you'll make before you make it. All around the field, Krell soldiers were dropping their weapons as they realized they were completely outmatched by the supposedly primitive humans. Sheriff Collins spoke into her wrist communicator again. Situation under control. Prisoners secured. No casualties. The battle for Riverdale, Kansas, was over before it had really begun. The first ground offensive of the mighty Krell Empire had been stopped by a sheriff, some farmers, and a small National Guard unit. And somewhere in Washington, D.C., General Powell received the news with a smile. Just as we planned, she said quietly. 3 days after the failed ground invasion, the main Krell ship sent a new message. This time, it wasn't a demand for surrender. It was a request for talks. The message came directly to the White House. President Green read it with a small smile, then called his advisors. They want to negotiate, he told them. They're asking for a neutral meeting place. General Powell wasn't surprised. After what happened in Kansas, they must realize this isn't going to be the easy victory they expected. Where should we meet them? Asked the Secretary of State. Geneva, said the President. Neutral ground with strong symbolic value. And I want Dr. Richard Bennett to lead our team. Dr. Bennett was in his lab at MIT when he got the call. 30 years ago, he had been just a graduate student when the Krell first arrived. Now, he was Earth's leading expert on alien technology and the head of the reverse engineering division. Me? He asked when the President called. I'm a scientist, not a diplomat. That's exactly why we need you, the President explained. You understand their technology better than anyone. You know how they think. 2 days later, in a grand meeting room in Geneva, 2 groups faced each other across a long table. On one side sat Dr. Bennett and his team of scientists and diplomats. On the other side were 5 Krell officials, including Supreme War Master Drax himself. The alien leader looked much less confident than in his first message to Earth. His yellow eyes moved nervously around the room. We are prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict, Drax said finally. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding between our peoples. Dr. Bennett smiled politely. There has been no misunderstanding, War Master. You came to conquer us. We defended ourselves. It's quite simple. But how? Burst out one of the other Krell officials. How did you advance so quickly? It should have taken centuries to develop the technology you now possess. Bennett leaned forward. You misunderstood our species on a fundamental level. Humans adapt. We learn. We innovate at a pace your civilization abandoned centuries ago. He picked up a small device from the table. It looked like a simple metal cube. When he pressed it, a holographic display appeared, showing the history of human technology over the past 30 years. The technology you showed us 30 years ago was like giving fire to determined children, Bennett continued. We didn't just copy your designs. We understood the principles behind them and found new applications you never considered. The Krell delegation watched in growing shock as the display showed human advancements. Artificial gravity control, faster-than-light communication, matter conversion technology. Some were based on Krell science, but others were completely new paths the aliens had never explored. Impossible, whispered Drax. Some of these technologies we only recently mastered after thousands of years of development. Bennett nodded. Because you follow traditional paths of advancement. Humans try crazy ideas. We experiment. We take risks. When you left that broken data pad during your first visit, you gave us a roadmap to the stars. The Krell ambassador, a smaller alien named Zorn, spoke up. But why didn't you contact us? Why keep these advancements secret? Because we knew you might come back like this, said Bennett, gesturing to Drax. Your cultural database showed us the Krell history of conquest. You've done this to 12 other species. You find promising worlds, make first contact, then return generations later expecting an easy victory. The room fell silent as the truth settled over everyone. The Krell plan had worked perfectly 12 times before, but the 13th species had turned the tables on them. We didn't want war, Bennett said more gently, but we've been expecting it. Your visit taught us that we weren't alone, and that not everyone out there would be friendly. You gave us the motivation to advance faster than any species you've encountered. Drax looked at the human scientist with new understanding, and perhaps respect. What are your terms? Bennett smiled. First, recognition of Earth's independence and sovereignty. Second, fair trade agreements. Third, an exchange of knowledge, with proper safeguards. And fourth, he added, looking directly at Drax, an introduction to the Galactic Council you never told us about. We know from your records that it exists, and we believe it's time Earth took its rightful place there. The Krell delegation looked at each other in shock. These humans didn't just want peace. They'd wanted a seat at the table of galactic civilization, and based on what they had shown, they had earned it. 6 months after the failed Krell invasion, the first official human delegation prepared to visit the Galactic Council. Earth's newest and most advanced ship, the Unity, carried Captain Nancy Kelly and her diplomatic team through space faster than any human vessel had traveled before. Coming out of faster-than-light travel now, reported the pilot. Galactic Council station ahead. The massive space station appeared on their view screen. It looked like a shining metal city floating in space, with towers and domes that glowed with colorful lights. Ships of many different designs moved around it, representing dozens of alien species. Captain Kelly stood from her command chair. It's even more impressive than the Krell files described. Dr. Bennett, also part of the delegation, nodded. And to think they tried to keep this from us. As the Unity approached the station, a voice came over their communication system, speaking in perfect English. Earth Vessel Unity, you are cleared for docking at Bay 17. Welcome to the Galactic Council. The human ship docked smoothly. When the airlock doors opened, Captain Kelly led her team into the station. The hallways were filled with aliens of many different shapes and sizes. Some had multiple limbs like the Krell. Others looked almost human. A few were so strange that it was hard to tell which parts were their heads and which were their bodies. Many of the aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Some whispered to each other. It was clear that news about Earth had spread through the galaxy. They're talking about us, whispered a young diplomat named Paul Garcia. Good, replied Kelly. Let them talk. The humans were led to the main council chamber. It was an enormous round room with rising seats like a giant theater. Each seat held a representative from a different world. In the center was a raised platform where speakers could address the council. As the humans entered, the room fell silent. The senior council representative, a tall, thin alien with blue skin, stood up. The council recognizes the delegation from Earth, the alien said, its voice echoing around the chamber. We have heard much about your world in recent cycles. Captain Kelly stepped forward onto the speaking platform. Thank you for welcoming us. Earth is honored to join the galactic community. The blue alien continued. The Krell claimed your species was primitive and violent. They attempted to conquer you before you could join the council. This violated our most sacred laws. Murmurs spread through the chamber. In one section, several Krell representatives looked down uncomfortably. Kelly spoke clearly so everyone could hear. Humanity doesn't seek revenge. We seek understanding and cooperation. The Krell underestimated us, but in doing so, they gave us the greatest gift possible, knowledge of the universe beyond our world, and the incentive to reach for it. She pressed a button on her wrist device. Above the platform, a hologram appeared showing new technologies that humans had developed. Clean energy systems, advanced medical treatments, and improved space travel methods. Earth offers these innovations to the Council races, Kelly continued, particularly our breakthroughs in energy efficiency and computational systems. We believe every species can benefit from fresh perspectives. The Council members leaned forward, clearly impressed. The senior representative's eyes widened. In all my years, the blue alien said, I have never seen such rapid advancement. Your species went from primitive chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in just 3 decades. Even more impressive is your restraint. You could have destroyed the Krell fleet, yet you showed mercy. After the formal session ended, many Council representatives approached the humans, eager to establish relations with Earth. Trade agreements were discussed, cultural exchanges planned. Earth was no longer isolated. It was now part of something much bigger. As the reception continued, an ancient alien with wrinkled gray skin and eyes that seemed to glow with inner wisdom approached Captain Kelly. This was the Arcturian Elder, oldest member of the Council. In all my centuries, the Elder said quietly, I've never seen a species advance so quickly or respond to aggression with such measured restraint. The Krell meant to conquer you, but instead created their greatest potential ally. The irony is not lost on the Council. Kelly smiled. On Earth, we have an old saying, that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. The Krell never understood that by showing us the stars, they guaranteed we would reach them, one way or another. The Elder nodded slowly. Your species will go far in this galaxy, Captain Kelly, perhaps farther than any of us imagine. As humanity took its place among the galactic community, the story of how they laughed in the face of an alien invasion became legend, a testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and their unique ability to transform threats into opportunities. The species that came to conquer found itself humbled. The world they thought was easy prey had instead become an equal, and the galaxy would never be the same again.